Would you guys rather suffocate or get shot?
Get shot.
Shot. Wait, depends on where.
Would you rather in the head?
Shot.
There would be no suffering at all.
Drowning or suffocating?
Suffocating. It's almost the same thing.
Skylar Annette Neese was born on February 10th, 1996, in Morgantown, West Virginia. She was the only child of Dave and Mary Neese and was always a very happy and smart child. As a teenager, she stood out as an intelligent and responsible student who loved reading books and always excelled in school. Since the age of 8, Skylar had been best friends with Shelia Ray Eddy. The girls lived just a few streets apart and first met at a local daycare. From that moment on, they were inseparable. As they grew older, their bond only deepened. In October 2010, when they were both 14 years old, they started their first year of high school, and for the first time, they started studying at the same school, which made their friendship even stronger. Shelia, however, was dealing with serious personal struggles. Her father had survived a traumatic car accident, and her family life became increasingly unstable, culminating in her parents' difficult separation. Skylar was always a loyal friend and believed that the rebellious, sometimes aggressive behaviors that her friend was beginning to display could be consequences of the problems she was facing. Therefore, she took it upon herself to be even closer to her friend, believing that she could somehow make her friend know that she would never be alone. Shelia always frequented the Neese family's house, and as their friendship was viewed favourably by Skylar's parents, she was treated and considered as a daughter by them too. She had free access to the property, received birthday presents from them, and even joined in some family outings. She wasn't just a friend, she was family. It was during this turbulent chapter in her life that Shelia introduced Skylar to Rachel Shoaff, a friend from her former high school who had recently transferred to theirs. Rachel was a bright, artistic teen with dreams of becoming an actress and singer. She came from a deeply religious family and was heavily involved in church activities. What began as a duo soon became a trio. They were suddenly inseparable, constantly together at school, hanging out after class, taking selfies, filming videos, and flooding social media with snapshots of their friendship. They were young, beautiful, and popular, a group that drew admiration and envy alike. By 2011, Skylar was in her sophomore year of high school, just 15 years old and thriving on paper. She maintained excellent grades and worked part-time at a local Wendy's. But beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to show. Shelia's influence was shifting Skylar's behaviour, slowly nudging her towards rebellion. She began sneaking out at night, experimenting with drinking and smoking, things she kept hidden from her parents. Still, despite this secretive streak, her school performance and work ethic never wavered. Everything seemed fine until at a certain point, the relationship between the trio began to fall apart. Skylar was feeling a little left out and seemed to have to compete with Rachel for Shelia's friendship, who in turn loved being the centre of attention. The two childhood friends started to disagree frequently, leading to fights and arguments that sometimes ended up being shared on social media. Skylar even posted some messages on her Twitter, vague, indirect messages, but which only increased the tension and undermined that friendship even more. There's just something about you I can't fucking stand. People can be so mean for absolutely no reason. It really doesn't take much to piss me off. Stress will be the death of me. You doing shit like that is why I will never completely trust you. On the evening of July 5th, 2012, 16-year-old Skylar returned home after a shift at Wendy's. Her parents, Dave and Mary, were in the living room watching TV. The three shared a quick conversation about her day, Then Skylar said goodnight, retreated to her bedroom, and closed the door. The next day, the 6th, the Neese family continued their routines normally. They woke up early and went to work. At noon, when Dave returned home for lunch, he noticed that his daughter's bedroom door was still closed. Upon entering, he saw that Skylar wasn't there. He noticed the window was cracked open and the screen had been removed. Outside, partially hidden beneath the window, was a small bench. It looked like Skylar had used it to climb out sometime during the night, and perhaps intended to return before anyone noticed. Dave began to worry. He assumed that his daughter had snuck out the night before and had not yet returned. He called her cell phone several times, but each call went straight to voicemail. He then called his wife, who hadn't heard from her either but told him to stay calm, because she was probably with her friends. Dave then called Shelia, who claimed she hadn't seen Skylar since the day before. He called his wife again, and Mary recommended that they wait until her shift at Wendy's at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, as she knew that her daughter was very responsible and would not miss work without warning. But unfortunately, Skylar didn't return. When Dave contacted Wendy's, the answer confirmed his worst fears. Skylar had never arrived, and she hadn't called in either. That was it. They couldn't wait any longer. Although it had been less than 24 hours since Skylar was last seen, he picked up the phone and called the police. His daughter was missing. One of the first steps taken by the police was to check the security camera footage from the apartment complex where Skylar lived. Footage showed a white sedan car arriving and parking near her house at midnight. 5 minutes later, she appeared and entered the car through the back door. Thus, for the police, everything seemed to point to a common event in which a teenager left home without her parents' knowledge. The Amber Alert, the alert that is triggered in the case of abduction of minors, was not issued because, according to the images, she had not been kidnapped but had entered the car voluntarily. The next day, July 7th, Shelia and her mother helped Dave and Mary put up posters and search the neighbourhood for Skylar. Rachel did not participate in the search because on that very day, she had gone to a church summer camp that would last 2 weeks. Unhappy with the lack of urgency with which the police handled the case, Skylar's parents sought support from the local media, obtaining publications about her disappearance through TV, radio, and internet channels. With all the enormous repercussion generated by the case, people began to speculate about what had happened. More days passed, and the Neese family continued in agony. One day, Shelia went to the family's house to talk and provide support. She said she missed her friend very much and asked to visit her room, and Mary accompanied her. She went in, sat on the bed and burst into tears. Mary hugged her, comforted her, suffering not only with the disappearance of her daughter, but also with the pain of her best friend, whom, remembering, she considered as a daughter too. On August 6th, a month after her disappearance, Shelia posted a message on Facebook that was responded to by Skylar's father. "I want my friend back. Love you, Shelia. I want her back too. Thanks, guys. I love you too, Dave. She will be home soon." On the 10th, she posted another message that was also responded to by Dave. "All I want is for my best friend to come home. I wish I knew something to give the police a lead, or so she can come home, but I don't know anything. I'd do anything to have her home right now, and I wish I knew something like everybody thinks I do. Come home, Skylar. It's been 5 weeks too long. I miss and love you." Dave said, "Hang tough, babe. Do not let things get you down. Love you." And she answered, "It's been difficult, but I'm trying. I love you." Months went by. No activity on Skylar's phone. No posts on social media. Not a single bank transaction. It was as if she had vanished from the face of the earth. Behind closed doors, investigators had already begun to fear the worst. The hope of finding Skylar alive was fading. One of the working theories was that she may have overdosed at a party and that those present had panicked and disposed of her body. But there was no evidence to support this, no witnesses, no leads, no solid direction to take the investigation. The local police had hit a wall. So, in September 2012, the FBI stepped in. The new agents immediately noticed something off. Rachel seemed to be uncomfortable with the situation, while Shelia showed no emotion when talking about the case. A totally different reaction from that moment when she cried in her friend's bed in front of Skylar's mother without understanding what was happening. According to new statements from schoolmates, Skylar and Shelia were having a lot of arguments weeks before the disappearance, and several people had witnessed heated discussions between the two, as well as between them and Rachel. The students also highlighted the somewhat intriguing messages that Skylar posted days before her disappearance. These are messages that I've already presented here, but analysing them now, we can feel a little more worried about what could be behind this. There's just something about you I can't fucking stand. People can be so mean for absolutely no reason. It really doesn't take much to piss me off. Stress will be the death of me. You doing shit like that is why I will never completely trust you. The FBI also discovered that, in fact, they highlighted evidence that was dismissed by the local police, that a few days before she disappeared, in fact, they highlighted evidence that was dismissed by the local police, that a few days before she disappeared, Skylar had uploaded a video in which her three friends were playing a somewhat bizarre game of questions and answers. In the video, Shelia asks Skylar and Rachel which way they would prefer to die, asphyxiated or shot. Both responded that they would prefer a shot. Then she asked if they would rather die by drowning or suffocating. Both responded that they preferred suffocating.
Would you guys rather suffocate or get shot?
Get shot.
Shot. Wait, depends on where.
Would you rather in the head?
Shot.
There would be no suffering at all.
Drowning or suffocating?
Suffocating. It's almost the same thing.
At that moment, the entire focus of the investigation was on Shelia and Rachel. The girls were called in for questioning several times, to the point where Skylar's father, Dave, publicly defended them, especially Shelia, who was like a second daughter to him and Mary. He asked the police to leave the girls alone, insisting they were grieving too, and that the constant suspicion was not only cruel, but it was also a waste of time. It turned out that during the course of the investigation, the FBI had very firm reasons to distrust the two, and this distrust began because of an inconsistency in the information they provided. Remember that the camera footage showed a white sedan arriving and parking near Skylar's house at midnight, and 5 minutes later, she got in the car and drove off. According to the girls' testimony, they did go to their friend's house to pick her up to hang out, talk and smoke, but they said it was at 11 p.m. They also said they dropped her back off before midnight, just a block away from her house to avoid waking her parents with the sound of the car. It was clear that the timing of the events did not match up. The last footage of her is at 12:35 a.m., slipping into the white sedan. After that, she vanishes. The pressure from the local community on the two girls only increased because people were convinced that they knew more than they were letting on. But at the same time, Dave and Mary refused to believe the slightest possibility that Shelia was involved in this. On December 28th, still in 2012, 6 months after the disappearance, the local emergency service received a call from Patricia Schoaf, Rachel's mother. She was desperate and reported that she could no longer control her daughter. She claimed her daughter was having a nervous breakdown, out of her mind, screaming that she wanted to die, hitting her parents, running around the neighborhood, and didn't know what else to do to contain her.
I have an issue with a 16-year-old daughter of mine. I can't control her anymore. She's screaming. She's running through the neighborhood. Give me the phone. No, this is over. This is over. Hurry up. Oh, God. She just gave me a block. Oh, God. Hurry up, please.
That was one of Rachel's many outbreaks episodes in recent months. After this event, she was admitted to a psychiatric clinic. 6 days later, on January 3rd, 2013, she left the clinic, went straight to meet her lawyer, and confessed that she was directly involved in Skylar's disappearance. The lawyer then took her to a police station to make a statement. The police hoped that she would just reveal some important secret, like Skylar having run away with someone or having died of an overdose. But what she reported left them in shock. Bluntly, Rachel said, "Shelia and I stabbed her to death." According to Rachel, she and Shelia started planning their friend's murder just 4 weeks before it happened. She said that after Shelia returned from a week-long trip with Skylar, the two were very angry with each other. They had fought a lot during the trip. That upon their return, Shelia arrived and decided that Skylar needed to die, and though she couldn't explain how, she convinced Rachel to go along with it. They plotted every detail, from the type of clothing they would wear, the location of the attack, the kitchen knives they would take from their homes, how they would dispose of the body, the items, in addition to combining gestures and signs that they would use to communicate on the day of the execution. In the early hours of July 5th to 6th, the two picked up Skylar by car under the pretext of talking and smoking. They drove for half an hour to a forested area on the border with the state of Pennsylvania, about 45 kilometers away. The three got out of the car and, at the agreed moment, Shelia counted to 3, and the two began to stab Skylar. In total desperation, Skylar tried to defend herself, and at one point even took Rachel's knife and stabbed her in the leg. But this reaction was not enough to stop the attack from continuing. In the end, Skylar was stabbed more than 50 times. They planned to bury Skylar's body right there, in a grave. They had taken a shovel, but the ground was too hard, made up of rocks and impossible to dig. So, they decided to abandon Skylar's body and cell phone next to a tree and covered it with branches, leaves and stones. Then they stripped off their bloody clothes, put them in the trunk of the car, put on clean clothes, put the clothes and the used knives in a black plastic bag, threw the evidence in a trash can. Then they went home, like nothing had happened. When asked by the police about the motivation, she simply said that they no longer liked Skylar and that they no longer wanted her as a friend. She agreed to take police to the site where they had left Skylar. There, investigators found what remained was a mostly skeletal body, which was sent for DNA testing and forensic confirmation. After the confession, the police's strategy was to keep Rachel's involvement under strict secrecy while the final investigation procedures progressed. Through an agreement, strange by the way, Rachel was not arrested at that moment, nor was her friend Shelia nor Skylar's parents found out about the confession. The agreement was somewhat risky, where Rachel would remain free but fully cooperate with the investigation, and would voluntarily hand herself over to the police when they managed to obtain irrefutable evidence to incriminate Shelia. In exchange, she would receive a reduced sentence. It wasn't until March 13th, 2013, more than 2 months after Rachel's confession, that authorities officially confirmed what many had feared. The remains found in the Pennsylvania woods were indeed those of Skylar's. Shelia, still unaware of how close the investigation had come to her, continued to keep up appearances. Trying to control the narrative, she took to social media and posted 3 messages. "This is the worst day of my whole life. The pain is real. Rest easy, Skylar. You'll always be my best friend. I miss you more than you could ever know." A month and a half later, on May 1st, that is, 10 months after the crime, and after the police obtained irrefutable physical evidence, the presence of Skylar's blood in the trunk of Shelia's car, they were finally able to issue arrest warrants for both of them. Rachel voluntarily surrendered, as agreed, and Shelia was detained while having lunch with her mother in a restaurant. At her custody hearing, Shelia appeared smiling, with her hair long and loose. She pleaded not guilty. Therefore, by making a declaration of innocence, the case would have to go to a grand jury, which left the Neese family devastated, because then all the horrible details of the murder would be exposed. For the trial in court, there was still an important unanswered question that continued to intrigue investigators. What would have been the real motivation for such a brutal crime? The justification presented by Rachel seemed too fragile. It seemed senseless to plan the murder of a friend just because she no longer wanted to maintain a friendship. Then, in a recovered diary entry written by Skylar, everything changed. The entry dated August 21st, 2011, nearly a year before the murder, described a sleepover at Rachel's house. The three girls had snuck alcohol from Rachel's mother and locked themselves in the bedroom. As the night wore on and the drinks took effect, something happened that Skylar hadn't expected. Rachel and Shelia started kissing and having intimate contact. She was surprised, embarrassed, and wanted to leave the room, but she had to stay and watch everything because if she left, Rachel's mother might find out that the girls were drunk. Skylar had no idea the two friends were involved in this way. They kept this secret from everyone and told Skylar that she could never reveal it to anyone. In the months following that sleepover, everything began to change. The three girls were often seen arguing at school or exchanging passive-aggressive jabs on social media. One day, they seemed close again, like nothing had happened, and the next the fights would erupt all over again. Their once inseparable bond was visibly unraveling. Until June 2012, a month before the crime, Skylar and Shelia went on a trip together for a week. It was a trial by fire for their friendship, and nothing went as expected. Instead of reconnecting, it became a final breaking point for them. Faced with the revelation brought by Skylar's diary, which was connected to the beginning of the fights witnessed by her schoolmates, and with Rachel's statement regarding a trip the two had taken together, the police closed the hypothesis about the motivation for the crime. The girls had murdered their friend supposedly to silence her about the true nature of their relationship. It is worth noting that this was only a hypothesis, and that Shelia and Rachel never confirmed or acknowledged having any relationship of this kind. 8 months after being arrested, both girls were tried as adults, even though they were minors. On January 24th, 2014, Shelia surprisingly changed her plea and found herself guilty of first-degree murder. With that, the long, painful legal process was cut short. There would be no trial. She was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 15 years. Her first eligibility date will be in 2028. She showed no emotion upon hearing the sentence and refused to speak directly to Skylar's parents to apologize, or at least show regret. The following month, it was Rachel's turn to appear in court. As he had already confessed and cooperated extensively, her case moved faster. In February, she was present only to hear the sentence read. As a result of her confession and cooperation during the process, she was convicted of second-degree murder and her sentence was reduced to 30 years in prison, being eligible for parole after 10 years. In other words, from May 1st, 2023, she could already be released on parole. Through tears, she approached Skylar's parents and delivered a heartfelt apology.
So sorry. I don't know if there's a proper way to make this apology, because there are not even words to describe the guilt and remorse that I feel each day for what I've done. The person that did that was not the real me, not the person I am, not what I'm made of, and not what I believe in. I don't think I ever thought this would actually happen. I became scared and caught up in something that I did not want to do. I never realized the gravity of my actions and how many people I've hurt. I hurt the Neese family and those who love Skylar. I hurt my parents and shamed my family. I hurt my extended family and all of my friends who loved me. I hurt my teachers and those who believed in me. I hurt my church family, my community, and those who trusted me. And I hurt my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. May God bring eternal peace to Skylar and the entire Neese family. Again, I'm so sorry, and I pray each day for everyone involved, and I pray each day for forgiveness.
Afterwards, Rachel cried for long minutes while her lawyer made his closing statements. In May 2023, Rachel had her first parole hearing. To make the request, the applicant must explain the reasons why they deserve the state's trust in order to be released and reintegrate into society. And what many people do in this case is to be as sincere as possible. And for the first time, after more than 10 years of the crime, confirmation was finally obtained about the motive for the crime. Rachel confirmed she was in an intimate relationship with Shelia, and the two were afraid that Skylar would reveal the secret. She revealed that after Skylar discovered the relationship between her and Shelia, everything changed. Tension quickly took over their friendship. What was once playful and close turned hostile, even violent at times. The dynamic between the three grew unbearable, and in their teenage minds, overwhelmed by secrecy, fear, and emotional immaturity, they didn't know how to cope. Due to the fact that she pleaded guilty from the beginning, helped the police in the investigation, and pointed out the location where Skylar's body was, it was expected that her request for parole would be accepted. However, it was denied. Dave and Mary Neese tried to heal and move on with their lives after the tragic loss of their only daughter. In honor of Skylar's memory, they worked to help pass Skylar's Law. Under this law, it is now authorized for Amber Alerts to be issued for all missing minors, and not just for those who have allegedly been kidnapped. This act was approved, but only in effect in West Virginia, the place where it all happened. Skylar's parents also created a beautiful memorial in the wooded area where their daughter's body was found. Shelia and Rachel continue to serve their sentences at West Virginia's Lakin Correctional Center.